Hello, my gorgeous women. Welcome to day 2 of our Duality Masterclass. Today we are going to be talking about one of the things I know we can all relate to, imposter syndrome. Of leading in when we feel like we are not ready. A big thing that does come up is feeling like a fraud, feeling like we have to have it figured out, feeling like, all the deep things. So as you're coming on, say hello. Let me know how things are going for you. I have some stories to share and really talk about how this is a big core wound for all of us. Even if it's not like, you're leading your business and you're doing things, like there are times in your life when you're in your relationship and you feel like a fraud, when you're, with your friends and you feel like a fraud because we've had pain, and it's like, is this pain going to be something I carry forever when I show up, when I lead, when I do things, when I am in partnerships and relationships? Like, is this something that I'm going to have? And, whenever I see titles of things that say like, overcome imposter syndrome, I'm like, no, like that, in reality, it sounds great, right? Like I would love to tell you that one day it'll go away, that one day you'll feel like you have reached your destination and you can show up and no fears will be there and it'll be totally fine, but that'd be a disservice to you, because it's learning to walk with it. It's learning to walk beside it. It's literally the depiction of duality. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to normalize it. We're going to release the shame of it today. We're going to talk openly about it. We're going to have a conversation. I'm going to share my journey of navigating this and then go from there. But let me know, how are you? How's everything? Let me know, is this your first day or is this day 2? I know a lot of you are catching the replays. I have something in my eye right now. A lot of you are catching the replays, but just let me know how it's all going. I know yesterday, I'm going to tell you the story of yesterday and how it felt so, it was the epitome of duality once I got off that call. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story of that, but I want to hear about you guys first. So as we jump into today, I want to really break down, like, what does it mean to you to be ready? We always use that as an excuse to not do things of, being ready to date, being able to start the business, being able to start investing, being able to, take these leaps and things. But to you, when we use that excuse, like, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. But what is ready? Right? Like, what is the core of that? Like, I don't, like, knowing enough or experiencing enough or feeling confident enough. Like, for me, ready is a state of mind, right? Like, as we closed out yesterday, like, ready is making that choice. And it doesn't necessarily mean the heat or the imposter syndrome or, life is perfect, but it's a state of mind of like, I'm ready to change the calibration of what I've been vibrating at or the things that I've been doing. Like, I'm ready to shift out of this to change something else. And that is something you claim. That's something that you have ownership. And so what I want to talk about today and what today's session, like, who's this for today, is anyone that's experiencing like guilt and you have the imposter syndrome and you have the feelings of imposter syndrome, but you're feeling this like guilt or shame or lack of authenticity, and you're finding yourself avoiding, and you're, feeling like you're struggling with creating momentum, and you're struggling with consistency in how you're showing up with people or work or life or relationships. And I just want you to imagine, like, creating safety in your body so that you can have alignment into the decision making process, right? Feeling this love and celebration for yourself, feeling this acceptance of the humanness, because I also don't believe in the toxic positivity movement. I actually have a live on that today with my friend Emma, of like, I'm going to feel happy, I'm going to feel happy-go-lucky all the time, but there's this like raw realness within the human expression. And so when we can actually get to that state of balance, of homeostasis, of understanding our body and having this freedom, that's where life starts to really have its magical moments. Announcement that we have the Unbreakably Bold is open for enrollment. I'll talk more about that at the end, and I'm also going to talk about some strategy sessions that I'm opening up. But I do want to remind you guys of that because our little discount for $1,500 instead of the $2,222 is going until this Friday, and then I'm going to launch it to the public. But on the back end, I know a lot of you are frequent flyers in the Healing to Happy community, and for you to show up here, I want to really honor that and celebrate that and give you guys just the first option to enter here because space is limited within this, and it's by application only. So you can find that in the section that says Unbreakably Bold. And then to enter the giveaway, you're going to see some sneaky little things for today. And the homework for that is to go and write a review on our podcast, on Apple Podcasts. So that is Healing to Happy. So write a review. You can screenshot it and either drop it in this group or send it to me, or I'll see it. But that will be day 2 to enter your name into the draw. So without further ado, do you ever feel like you have this feeling of being quote unquote found out? Like that you don't really deserve to have the success that you have, or the love that you have, or the friendships that you have, or that kind of stuff. This has been a core wound of mine for so long. And instead of pretending like it doesn't exist, I'm just going to chat about it with you. Because being found, like I remember when I was first started my business, right? Like I wasn't the healthiest person. I was on my way to becoming that. Like that was the intention of me starting it so that I would be accountable. But when I started my business, I was still partying my ass off. I was still in a very toxic relationship. I was still wasn't living my life in alignment. But I had this blueprint, like this vision that I wanted to live. But yet I was so afraid of being found out because the truth was I wasn't in alignment. I wasn't doing the best that I could do. And another thing that Mark Grove says, because I know I quoted him yesterday, but he says, when you know better, you have to do better. And I wasn't doing that. And so this idea of being found out is very common in men. Like I still feel it, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, what do people find out? Like, I don't know, about like some anger or like something like that, where it's like this other core thing that comes. Now it's getting a lot better. Now it is a lot better because what I'm going to talk about today is I know myself, I give myself permission in the humanness and the richness, and I'm going to walk you through the steps of activating that and really invite you to that next level. But when we have this fear of being found out, there's some type of misalignment going on. And it's not to say that doesn't go away, but we can reframe that in our nervous system, in our psyche of this is a portal of activation. This is something I get to go and do. This is an invitation, right? Like when we see something in someone else, it's just a reflection of what we have inside of us that we aren't stepping fully into yet. And so it's not like I was researching on imposter syndrome yesterday and this morning, just kind of to get a feel of it. And Forbes was doing a study with like the top 100 CEOs, and that was, and like the secret that they haven't told anyone and what have you, and all the narrative behind that. But this has been the core wound for them too, where it's this, I actually have it written down here. What's the phrasing that they used perfectly? I'm afraid that I'll be found out for being a fraud is like the common quote that they found. The top 100 CEOs were saying this in Forbes. And it gets you thinking, like, found out about what? Right? Like, what are we so afraid that will come to light? And what are we not being honest with ourselves about? About, I don't know, our beliefs, our patternings, our nasty little habits that we keep to ourselves that are like, oh, I'm moving in with someone and now they're going to know. Like, these kind of things. And it's just, it starts to affect how we show up, who we are, how we converse, how we move, how we relate to people. Because it starts to creep in this sense of self-doubt, this sense of self-trust, this sense of not being authentic to what our core needs, wants, and desires are. And I want to have a conversation. Like, is this landing for you? Does this kind of, you're like, kind of like me? get it. Because as we start to navigate these things, and what we want to start to embody is this sense of ownership, this sense of, we are adequate, we are balanced, and getting comfortable. I just reshared something on my story around imposter syndrome because it hits the nail on the head that when we're in a space of growth that is positive, right? And we're going to talk about the comparison trap today. When we're in a space of growth that is positive, we seek being the dumbest person in the room. Like, that's a part of ourselves. We're like, okay, let me put me in a position for growth and continually up-leveling that and seeking that. That's why I love masterminds. That's why, UBB, Unbreakably Bold, is a group program. So it's so, I remember when I was thinking of group programs and I was like, I don't want to go because I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to go because I don't want people to know if this doesn't work for me. I don't want to, because then, our core wound as women is disappointment. The core wound for men is guilt and shame. And so it's like, I don't want to be disappointed if this doesn't work for me. And yet we're already being disappointed because we're not getting fully in that arena. We're not putting ourselves in the rooms that would challenge this belief, this what have you. And yet we're already disappointed in the present moment, but we're not disappointed enough yet to take this leap, to take this next step, to move, And so when we think about success, right? Like when we're starting to move through things, we shut things down as well. Like we don't celebrate our successes. We often, and let me know if this lands for you, will chalk it all up to luck. Like I was just lucky. I just, I found this one thing, or I met this one person. And there is this theme of luck that does happen, but people that have success are because they put themselves in the arena. They took the risks. They hired the mentors. They took a certain thing. They did a certain leap, and they made pivots, and they made pivots fast. But because we don't celebrate ourselves or know our self-worth or have this sense of self-love and understanding and acceptance and permission, we look at people, especially in this social media age, as, well, they were just lucky. So for them, that makes sense. For them, that makes sense. And for us, for someone like me, I've been through this. I've had this happen to me. This is the house. This is the family I grew up with. These are the circumstances that I had. This is the emotional narrative that's trapped in my body that I'm going to succumb to. The life I have now, life I've created and built, statistically doesn't make sense, right? Like the things that I've been through, like how we talked about yesterday, no one would be mad if I just stuck with the drugs and the drinking and like went on the self-sabotage kind of thing. And I don't know, did all the stuff that I was doing. Like when that was happening in my life, like, yes, people question it, but to them it was like, yeah, well, that makes sense. And so it felt like I was an imposter when I started to get healthy, when I started to shift what I was doing and moving through these very big phases of life, and to create something and to speak on stages and to do these things and, run these workshops and have this business. Like it felt fake because that wasn't the expectation I had for myself or what other people had either, and so it's one of those things of standing in that and owning it. And on the path of getting there, that's kind of what I want to talk about today, is like, how do we walk with that feeling? How do we sit in that, like, those moments of starting a business, even though my health was a wreck, and then moving into gut health, even though gut health was a wreck, and then moving into trauma because whatever, like there's never a right moment, right? Like it's claiming it as such. And one of the first things I did was, aggressively seeking out to be the most unqualified person in the room. And as humans, what I witness, at least with my clients and my one-on-ones and the VIPs, is this fear of saying, like, I don't know, and therefore I'm going to do this on my own. Like, something I wish I would have done that would have monumentally propelled my growth forward, my business forward, my life forward, was sitting in meetings and going, I don't know what any of that means. You know, like, I started my spirituality journey by myself. I started my eating disorder recovery by myself. I started codependency, nervous system regulation, my business, like all these things, I started them by myself. And when you're doing things by yourself, you can't see your blind spots. You slow your growth. Not that you can't get to where you're going. I got to where I needed to go until I felt safe enough to lean into mentorship, and now it's collapsing time. But because I was so afraid of saying, I don't know, especially when I started doing the self-development stuff, and I was like, what do you mean shadow self? What do you mean, like, triggers and trauma and past life and family dynamics and family trauma and, you know, all the kind of things? Like, I got it conceptually from a self-study standpoint, but I never was in an arena to put it into practice. Because I didn't want to be the dumbest person in the room. You know, it wasn't something my family did, or at least not the side of my family that I grew up with. My dad's side of the family was very much in that arena, but I didn't grow up with them until my later years. But the fear of, there's so much power and freedom that comes with saying, I don't know. Can you say that a different way? Or can you explain that to me? Can you, break that down for me? And this is why community is so important. Like, even coming into my mastermind with my mentor, I could sit there and be like, I don't know. And the second point that I also want to bring is that most of the time when it comes to decision making and we say, I don't know, we always know, we just don't have the self-trust, self-leadership, or intuition anymore to actually trust that decision making. Right? So there's a power in saying, I don't know. And there's this self-leadership and boldness and trust in, yeah, you do. But the conditioning and the life experience and that subconscious programming helps you believe that you don't. Like, I don't know if I don't know if I want to pivot my business. Yes, you do. You just don't know what's on the other end of that, so it's kind of terrifying. But you do. I don't know if I want to go into a little bit of debt to hire my mentor to, help me through that pivot, to do the thing better, because I've been doing the cheap way. Yes, you do. Again, you just don't trust yourself enough to do that. But if you look in your repertoire of life and experiences, you're pretty good on that. I don't know if I want to leave the relationship. Yes, you do. Because it's not serving you, and you know it's an energy drain, and as much as it gives you validation and, that chapter of your life, you do. Or I don't know if I want to have that conversation in my relationship because I don't know how they're going to react. Yes, you do. But because we cling to this, going back to Tony Robbins' 6 human needs and that kind of thing, we cling to certainty. I want to know what's on the other end of making that leap. And therefore, since I can't guarantee that, I say I don't know. But going back to the topic of imposter syndrome and how this interferes, our intuition has been so constructed, so broken down over time, that we get to a point in our life, something happens, some type of trauma, some type of life experience, some type of event, where you sit there and you're like, what thoughts are mine? And what is just the path that I was told that I'm supposed to go on? Is there a way I can merge the both? Or is there this kind of thing? And that's what the homework today is going to be, is kind of tapping into your intuition and really exploring trusting yourself, which could be weird, but it's so expansive, right? And so when we're navigating the I don't know kind of feeling, it's really sitting there being like, I do know I probably just haven't figured out the words to articulate this because I've been feeling it for a while. And at first, it is okay to actually not know, right? Like, that is okay. But eventually we get to the point where we keep saying, I don't know. And that's where that imposter kind of starts to come in, because when you know better and you don't do better, it starts to kind of creep in and you're like, I don't know. And your like soul and your nervous system and your like subconscious brain is like, yes, you do. You just don't want to have that hard conversation, or you don't want to take that big leap, or you don't want to like invest, or you don't want to cut things off. Like, there are things in this stage of duality where we lean a little bit too much on the I don't know after a certain point. Because sometimes you don't. Because, I mean, when you're in states of arousal and you've been triggered, it can take 6 to 30 hours for the hormones in your body to actually regulate again. So in states of arousal, your prefrontal cortex, I'm getting nerdy right now, sorry, but your prefrontal cortex shuts down, right? And so making decision making, this is why, like, if we're in a fight and we keep having the same fight, this is what's happening, because the hormones actually haven't settled yet. So that can take 6 to 30 hours. That is when I don't know. Fabulous. But what are we doing to figure that out? To sit in it, to come to the conclusion. And once we come to it, how do we regulate ourselves to then make that choice, to then take that leap, to then have that discussion, to, overcome that feeling of fraud? Because a lot of that fraud feelings comes because we're not taking the moves we know we need to make. We're not cutting the ties we know we need to cut the ties on. We know we're not investing where we need to invest. We're not taking these bold leadership decisions because we're afraid, and that's okay. But who are you to yourself in those moments? How are you showing up for yourself? How are you leading yourself through that so we're not repeating the cycles? Because our comfort zones are here, but if we want to overcome the imposter syndrome, not overcome it, but learn to walk with it, we have to learn to stretch with it, right? And then we step into the topic of a lot of imposter syndrome comes from the comparison trap, especially with social media. And really looking at, like, everyone's life is a fucking highlight reel. And it's not to say that's bad, right? Like, I was listening to a podcast this morning where they were kind of describing imposter syndrome as, and it was on the Boss Babe podcast, but they were describing imposter syndrome as, or like people's highlight reels, and the reason we have this conflict is sitting in this space and realizing, like, if you're applying for a job, or if you're going in, creating some type of portfolio, a lot of people on social media nowadays that's their business. And you wouldn't go to a job interview and like show your worst self and put these things. And we say we want all of this, like, I want the realness, I want this. And it's like, but at the same time, I get you, yes, me too. That's why I love stories, because they're a little bit more real. But like, it's someone's portfolio. And so we have to have the self-leadership, the self-regulation, the tools to tell when our body is getting into the, and like, this is what I'm breaking down even more so inside of Unbreakably Bold, because I wish I would have known this in the beginning. But like, we feel this feeling of comparison, and to be able to understand that, one, it's an invitation, or two, it can be toxic, but that is someone's highlight reel. But our brain is always seeking for these drama states. Like, we love to seek out things that activate our body because what have you, that's our amygdala. You can Thank your amygdala for that one. But our body is constantly seeking out like comparison and traps and drama and things like that. Like how many times, if you live in the social media world, like you don't, but like even if you're in, I don't know, any corporate job, any sales job with your parents, like I think we're just conditioned to take on the negative. And like if someone says something positive, you're like, oh, this old thing. Like if someone like compliments your clothes and you're like, oh, I feel really good today. But when someone compliments you, you're like, oh, it's so old. But we don't know how to like receive these compliments. But if someone gives you like criticism or something, it like ruins your life and you take it on and you're like, da 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 da, and you're like seeking that stuff out. It's just so interesting to witness when we do that, right? And then this comparison thing comes back to the imposter syndrome because we're sitting there and like when we can look at comparison, the biggest aspect of my life that has changed, especially being in mentorship in this coaching field and all the kind of things, is that when we see something and we feel this twinge of jealousy, when we feel this excitement, when we feel this, I don't know, like when you're scrolling on the internet, like I feel it often I feel it, but I can feel it in my body when it starts to turn toxic and I'm like, goodbye, and turn off my phone. But I have a lot of people on my feed. They're having a lot of success in their business and their families and their relationships. And I purposefully do that because if I get activated by that, that means that something is out there for me. That means that's something that I want. And that is perfectly okay. You know, it's like the aspect of if you are at the gym. This is the example they gave in the podcast and I loved it, so I'm going to reuse it. You're at the gym and because I do this every time, and someone next to you is running on a higher incline and faster, and you're like, well, damn it. I'm not going to lose this metaphorical race that I just made up in my head. I'm not doing that. And you're just like upping your thing so that you can go, and you're going whatever. And by the end of it, you get off the treadmill and you're like, oh, I feel so good. I'm so proud of myself. Like I didn't even know I could go that fast and for that long. And that felt so good. Positive comparison. Good, right? Then there's other ones where it's like, look at her abs. She has what I don't have. She has this. She has this available to her. She probably has this. She probably had it easy. She probably grew up in this kind of place. She probably had this. Looking, othering ourselves. As humans, we love to other ourselves. And yet our deepest core is to belong. But yet we're always seeking out, not always, but we often seek out the othering. Like they're different from me. And that's when it becomes toxic. Because then we don't do the thing we want to do. And we have to be able to sit there and really be like, okay, what is this shining a light on in my life? What part of me am I not bringing to the table that I can be 1 inch further? Granted, we have to be able to, like for me, and I'm like, oh, I want to have the $1 billion brand like Rihanna, like the way she built that and she's her authentic self. And it's like, my brain is like, girl, love your dream. Little far right now. And it's like I can be activated by that in the far reach of things, but also looking at like, where's this mentorship, where's this 1% better that I can be doing, where's this other kind of thing? Because when we have this healthy relationship to comparison, the imposter syndrome doesn't have to be this thing that we fear. This imposter syndrome gets to be this thing that's like, what is being activated inside of me that I can start to bring to my life, right? Like, starting my business and being this like CEO self and what have you, like that felt so fucking weird to me when I first started. I was like, I don't know anything about spreadsheets or business plans or lawyers and taxes and accounting and tax write-offs and structure and strategy and team management and whatever. Like, is what my young self used to say. But what I did do is I had mentors and I had really good friends at the time that I would go to meetings with. Because I remember sitting down with my lawyers and I'd be like, the first time I went and I just like blinked 1,000 times. And I forget the word he said. Oh, I can't remember. But he kept saying one word and that's all I could think about. And I kept just counting how many times he was saying it because I couldn't pay attention because I was like, none of this is English to me. So I brought he helped me start my business, one of my mentors with me to listen. And then he would turn to me and he'd be like, okay. And he'd break it down. This is why I love mentorship. This is why I love groups. This is why I love the power of that. Because you get to sit in this space of like, instead of comparing myself to these successful CEOs, it was like, how do I pull up a seat at the table so I can make sense of this, so I can understand, so I can actually move the pendulum forward to embody my future self, right? And so when we're walking through duality and we're like, okay, I feel like I'm being an imposter because my heart is breaking while I'm also creating these movements, while I'm also doing these things. It could feel like it's fake. It can feel like you're living two lives. But if we just met our human within that space, what would that feel like to you? What would it feel like if you, instead of being like, I'm afraid of being found out, what if you just allowed that space of you to come to life, to really be seen, to sit with that, shadow sister, so it doesn't create this toxic comparison, but it actually is used as one of your biggest strengths. After this call yesterday, like right now is such a pivotal time in my life, right? Leading with a healing heart is my life right now. Like after our call yesterday, I collapsed on the floor and I cried. I didn't know why at the time, because not like anything shifted, like this has been a thing. But I realized it was because there's just so much weight, and it's this freeing thing that I get to stand within. And it's also scary, right? Because for so long we built up this identity. I built up this identity of the gut health coach. I built up this identity of the girlfriend. I've built up the identity of this version of my quote unquote American self since I moved back to the States. Like I built up this identity, and for some reason yesterday it just felt like all of that was being released. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I didn't know when I was making this masterclass or all that kind of stuff that this was also going to be so profound in my life, but it gets to be that, right? It gets to be a moment of sitting with that shadow and not letting that mean you're an imposter, not letting that mean that this is going to take over your self-love and your empowerment and your leadership, but letting that humanness go side by side with her. Letting that actually remind you of your strength and the power and the way that you can lead and the way that you can show up. So when we're going through things, it's allowing that space of the in-between and finding that sacred pause to really fully express and feel these feelings. And that's the other thing, like beyond just the comparison trap is when we're afraid of being found out, and let me know if this lands for you. If you're afraid of being found out, have you sat with that shadow self of you? The angry one, the bitter one, the one with ridiculous high expectations, the one with avoidance, the one with anxious attachment or avoidance attachment, the one with body image issues, the one with relationship issues, the one with money issues. Like, have you sat with her? I heard a phrase the other day that women have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. 60 to 80,000 thoughts, majority of which are negative. And if you've been in any of my programs, you know that I call this my shadow sister. Or if she's being a real bitch, I call it my inner mean bitch. But we've become better friends, so now it's the shadow sister. But what I realize is that our most true self always really does want to come through. We just have paths and agendas and things we've done and the lives we've built and the stuff. And we try to ignore her for a really long time. But by ignoring her, we actually give her more power. And it becomes this inner critic. And we become motivated by self-deprecation and bitterness and anger and resentment. And we're led by this emotional narrative. And so we don't take the leaps and we don't take the risks, quote unquote, that lie within duality. Because that shadow sister, the fear, the anger, the bitterness, the resentment, she's leading. And this is why inside of Unbreakably Bold, we go through the acronym SHE, self-knowledge, healing, embodiment. Because in order to heal the trauma, heal the dysregulation and the symptoms that are arising because of that, whether it's anxiety, depression, panic attacks, eating disorders, drugs and alcohol, toxic behavior patterns, like the list is endless with dysregulation. In order to heal that, we have to first understand our body. Like I can tell how much someone loves themselves based on their routines, based on who they surround themselves with, based on how they eat, based on what their growth patterns are, what they study daily, what they're doing from day to day. Like I can tell within one strategy session call where I have to work with my clients. Because we have to understand, and then from there we have to understand like our body knowledge, what's happening, feeling it, the practice that we walked through yesterday, just kind of feeling it in our body and journaling that out, like what's under the fear. And then moving into the healing phase, right? Where we give a voice to this shadow sister. We let it be a part of us instead of pretending it doesn't exist, but we're bringing awareness to it. How it's impacting us, where we came from. Like for me, the voice that was inside my head, I remember sitting in therapy and I know I am a very hard critic on myself. I'm a lot better now, but there have been times when I'm like crying to my dad on the phone about things and he's like, well, you should talk to your boss. And I'm like, and I'd be in therapy just crying about these things, right? And I remember when she first asked me the question, like, well, whose voice is that? And my first response, because I had been in the self-development world and I thought I knew everything, but I cerebrally knew things, but I wasn't actually listening to my body, as we do. And I was like, oh, it's my inner child. She's just whining that she's not there yet, and da-da-da-da. And, she kept talking. I don't know what she was talking about. And then all of a sudden it came to me and I was like, fuck. It's my mother's voice. And I was like, oh, man. So where did I learn this? And how do I want to create safety in my body so that's no longer a thing? And how do I start to heal this and create it as this sister as opposed to this like attacking mother? Like there are two different mothering energies that we have in our body. One is like our mothers, tell you what's right and wrong, do the kind of thing, let me fix all the problems kind of vibe. And the other one is this like sacred, positive, and forceful, like we're okay, like goddess kind of energy. I know some people don't like the word goddess, but that kind of energy, like there's two different ones and structures and archetypes in our psyche. But like to have that awareness of like, okay, so I have this in my body and now how do I start to reprogram that? And that's what we use. We use the science and the soul when we're doing these things, right? Because when we get into this healing area, it's not scary to be in your psyche. It's not we keep reverting back to these old tendencies. It's not these kind of things, which I found myself doing inside therapy. Like, I was just talking about things. I wasn't actually getting safety in my body and changing things and changing my habits. It was like, I'm just aware even more of my trauma now. And I love therapy because it's a good place to vent, but there's just more to it, right? Like, there's body work, there's somatics, there's a really good book is The Body Keeps the Score. But moving past these things, we have to heal the psyche. You know, that's the biggest thing that I've learned in studying trauma and doing those certifications is the safety in the present, so we can build resiliency for the future and release these self-protection mechanisms. And that's where the E comes, as the embodiment, right? So that's what we're doing in that 8-week. We're walking through these processes, but the embodiment is when your body feels safe. Because you're gonna have old tendencies come back. You're gonna have triggers and things come up, and life is gonna throw you curveballs. Like, that literally is life. But you learn how to surf with it. You learn how to flow with it and go through it without it meaning this is end all be all, this is how my fate is, this is how I am because of the narrative that I've had, because of my life experiences, because this is how my mom is, this is how my dad is, this is because of my life, this is because of that partner. Like, we love to play I will say for me, I loved to play being the victim. I loved it. Because it meant I didn't have to take responsibility. It meant they're at fault, they're the ones that are wrong, they're doing this, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Wondering why I feel like an imposter anytime I would step into a spiritual arena, and why I'd, speak on things and I'd be like, oh, not really the best about that either. But I was quick to be like, you need to do this so that you're better, so that I can feel safer, so that you're better, and you read this book so that you're better, so I feel better, and this, that, the other thing. And we put our safety and our regulation in other people's hands, instead of taking radical responsibility of how do I heal my codependency? How do I regulate my nervous system, my attachment style? How do I get a healthy relationship with my body so I've stopped binging and feeling like I'm on a continuous cycle of chasing the next best diet that's going to give me this fulfillment and this kind of everlasting acceptance that will maybe give me the love that I want, because if my body looks a certain way, then obviously that's how I'm going to be loved. We put so much outside of ourselves because of the shadow, because of the comparison trap, because of the imposter syndrome. I just wanted to offset things. And if that can relate to you, let me know. Give me a little like or something. You guys are quiet today. But this leads to the last thing. The last thing for today that I want to talk about, because it's so big and is the foundation of what is unbreakably bold. Fucking shame. Like, when our shadow is running so strong and imposter syndrome is running so strong and the confusion and all the things, shame weighs so heavy and it keeps us from making moves in our life. We know better, yet we don't do better. And so it compounds in our life. I know I was supposed to leave that relationship early. I know I was supposed to, stick to my freaking alarm clock in the morning instead of clicking snooze all the time, but I'm breaking this promise first thing in the morning to myself. I know we spend our lives chasing these shoulds, and it builds up on the shame. And my fucking mission in this world is to slay as much shame as we can. That's why our product suite is so freaking diverse, because it bleeds into everything. And what would it feel like to feel bold, to feel like we can, walk with the shame? It's not to say it doesn't go away. It's not to say imposter syndrome and the things that we're feeling go away, but we let the emotional narrative that our body feels and then our brain makes up some type of story based on our lived experiences, based on the things that we've told, based on our relationship patterns and experiences within that, to have the guilt, to have the shame, to have the disappointment, to have the lack of confidence, to have the lack of capabilities, to not be ready yet. Shame is this, like, I felt shame when I started my business and I was still partying and I couldn't stop, and I didn't understand that that was a protection mechanism. Like, I would, have the success. My business took off very quickly in the beginning, and I was like, I had the success, and I would like, skeet, and I would revert back to my old self-sabotage, using drugs, going partying, do this whole thing. I didn't understand trauma yet and why I kept doing that, but I felt so much shame around that because I didn't take the time to learn my body. I thought I could out diet that. I was like, well, if I just cut out alcohol for 30 days, that'll mean this will go away, right? Day 31 gets smashed. Like, nope, that didn't heal my relationship to that. Okay, on to the next. Maybe if I go on these extreme diets, if I go keto and if I go fasting and I, go on these spiritual retreats, like, that will heal these things. Come back from vacation only to find myself who knows what. Because it wasn't real. I was just escaping. I wasn't sitting in the shame. Like, there is such a big chapter inside of Unbreakably Bold around this. Because shame work, shadow work, wasn't something I understood. I thought therapy was that. I was like, let me complain about my mother enough. My shadow will go away, right? Little did I know that was just dysregulating me further and being more angry, and was not very helpful. But when we can sit with the shame, when we can look at it. 1 year ago, I would have not been able to tell you all that yesterday I fell on the floor crying. Because I would have felt shame. Because you're supposed to figure it out by now, aren't you? That's a big thing in this industry, right? You're having relationship problems, you're supposed to figure that out by now. You have issues with your body? Don't you work in health? Shouldn't you figure that out by now? Like, it's this thing, right? But it would be a disservice for me to be like, my highlight reel is this, and this breakup is the easiest thing I've ever walked through, and this is duality, and it's so fucking perfect, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, that would be a disservice to you. But on the other side of me falling to the floor and letting my body release whatever it was releasing, I created the most epic experience. I got drinks with one of my best friends. Instead of just sitting around watching Netflix and letting my life kind of crumble, I am now planning a potential road trip down California. Like, there are moves. You can do both, right? And instead of letting that shame consume me and keeping it on the back end and not letting my friends truly see the emotions that I'm feeling because I'm afraid it'll be too much, not letting you, beautiful humans, see the truth of healing and how to walk with duality, not allowing myself to feel it because I want to numb out with Netflix or wine or more work or what have you. It's just letting it be. I did a really powerful masterclass. I don't know, but kunsigi. It's a beautiful Japanese concept that I am absolutely in love with. Where, let me know, have you heard of this? I love it. So it's an art form where you wrap up a bowl, you break it, and it's put together with gold. The whole symbolization of that, right? That's life, that's healing, that is duality. But there's a key point in this narrative, right? What you do is you take your bowl, right? And you wrap it in a cloth. The bowl is you. Cloth is your support systems, right? I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now if I didn't have my mentor, if I didn't have my best friends, if I didn't have, my family, if I didn't have the tools that I teach inside of my programs, whether it is Sacred Singlehood or whether it is Unbreakably Bold, I wouldn't have the things. But that is the wrap, so it doesn't explode and go everywhere. So you build the foundation of that. So that's the towel. Then you take the hammer. The hammer can be destructive or construction. That's hammers. They're used to break shit or to build shit. And so you take the hammer and you tick, 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 clink it a few times. And you open the thing and you let the pieces fall to observe. As human nature, the compulsion to fix it, to figure out the pieces, put it back together, glue it back together, fix it, be it done, let it go, be done with it. That's the human compulsion. There is such a power in the sacred pause and to observe the pieces before fixing them. That's shame. That is working with your shame. That's, as scary as that might be, and you might be feeling in your body like, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to look at these things, this thing. I don't want to talk about this with people. I don't want to give it life. I don't want to give it light. I don't want to do any of that. Let me just pick it up and put it together really quick. But when you're looking at the pieces, you can see the shadow. You can see the repetition. You can see what's happening. Your response systems, your relationship patterning, your avoidant tendencies, your anxious tendencies, all the things. This is where the truth of you comes to life. This is where you start to create your life instead of just react to it. There's this moment in time, especially in the moment of duality and understanding that we get a pause. But sometimes when we're so reactive, we don't feel it. When we're dysregulated and we don't have the tools and we don't have, we don't have our towel, we just react to fix it. And we never get the message. And then it keeps repeating and we wonder why this keeps happening. Because we have to allow that message to come through so we can make the pivot necessary. Going back to the whole pivot thing, making the pivots and making them fast. But we don't know what that pivot is because going back to what I said yesterday, we are 95% of a cellular memory of who we've been. Based on what we've been told, what we've experienced, what we've learned. That is all of us. Mostly constructed before the age of 7, and then we've just responded. Or reacted would be a better phrase, from then. And then after 25, it's now our prefrontal cortex, and now we're a little bit more aware, and that's that weird age where we're like, oh, what am I doing? But we can have two choices where we pick one path and we keep going the same thing, but I know you're like me, and you're choosing a different one, which is why I fucking love doing this stuff, where we're questioning it. We may not know the right direction. We may not know the right processes or the steps to take or the conversations to have, but we're showing up to learn. And then there's tools and there's practices and there's systems in place to work with the imposter that might be coming up along that. Because the conversations we continually have is, why do I keep doing this? Like in my DMs, it's the conversations I have with a lot of you. It's like, I keep doing this. I was good and then this happened. I was on my way here and then this life event happened and it threw me back into my old 7-year-old trauma response self or what have you. And so when you do the work to build a strong opinion of yourself, to stabilize and regulate your nervous system, to spend time building the strategies, building the routines, everything changes. The thing about self-development is that I did this too. We don't have a structure to it, or a strategy, or systems, or routines. Like the most successful people I know that I surround myself with, myself included, that have completely changed their lives from reactive to responsive and responsibility, there are daily actions being taken. There are structures and strategies and consistencies and organization and schedules. Like, it sounds like a job because in the beginning stages it is. You're the best ROI you will ever have. There is no Cinderella thing with a fairy godmother that comes in and goes bippity boppity boop and changes your entire life. It's taking ownership and responsibility to create that structure and that strategy and the methods and the daily doings so that you can regulate your body and achieve these things and walk in duality and walk with fear and walk with shame and walk with guilt and walk with heartbreak and still shift and still make the pivots necessary, because there's gonna be a lot of pivots in your life, because your soul, your purpose, your alignment, it's forever evolving. Like, however young you are right now, think of all the lifetimes you've already lived on the journey to get where you want to go, where you're meant to go, and how many times your soul has been asking for something else, and then you get to the point where it breaks your heart and you're like, I knew I shouldn't have dragged my feet so much. I think of this moment all the time when I was building my businesses or doing my nervous system regulation on my own. I'm like, I really wish, like this last year specifically, 2021, I went 2 feet in on everything. And you guys, if you've been around for a while, you've seen it in our branding and our messaging and the way that I show up and the way I even look. Like, it is just different. Because when we get out of our own way and see that I have fear and I have this vision in my life, and I'm willing to walk with both so I can get to the other side. It's claiming that we're ready. It's claiming that this is the right moment. It's claiming that you're never going to feel 100% confident. You're never going to feel like you're 1,000% ready. You're never going to feel like you know enough. You're never going to feel like, until you claim that. I know enough because my life experience. I know enough because I study this shit daily. I know enough because of my routines and my structures and the way that I've built and crafted my life like I'm the CEO of my life. There's the freedom. There's the choice. There's the opportunity. There's the no longer feeling like we're going to be found out. Because there's nothing to find out. Yes, we're going to have we're going to have this fear of like, oh, they're going to know so much more than me and they're going to do these things. But can you use that as this invitation of, this is showing me the parts of myself that I haven't yet made space for, but I desire to make space for this now. And that's where the power lies. And so this is the end of day 1, or day 2, sorry. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about perfectionism and how this is one of the biggest forms of self-sabotage and getting in our own way. I'm going to talk a bit about Unbreakably Bold, but if you are complete for the day, I love you. Tomorrow's going to be absolutely amazing. I feel so much better about today. Like, this was such a good one. Thank you for being here. The one thing that I do love is, like, time is the one thing we can never get back. And I'm just always honored when people spend their time with me in this space, growing, learning, evolving. And so for the homework for today, I'm going to post it. What I want you to really dive into is your intuition. Like, where's the question I had written out so I can get this perfectly the way I wanted to? I'm going to pull it up right here. Intuition. Okay. I want you to pay attention today. or journal. It's a really good journal prompt of how do you know when it's your true self or whether it's your responded self, right? Like this is a space that we can sit in so we can overcome imposter syndrome. But knowing your true self. So for example, for me, when I know things are in alignment, I'm lit up by them. I have so much energy for the day. I'm excited. Even when like today, my schedule is jam-packed all day with meetings. There's a lot of talking going on. But I'm excited about it. It feels good. It gives me energy. I feel excited. I don't need like a 30-ounce coffee to get through the day. I don't even know if that's a size, but hey. So what is that for you? Like when I'm out of alignment, I'm drained, I'm bitter, I avoid it. Like I just keep moving it down my task list. Like what is that for you? And that helps to bring more awareness to what is your true authentic self. Because I know when I first started hearing that in self-development, I was like, what does that even mean? I don't know. And then from there, we start to understand, like, is this the programming? Is this, something I learned from my parents? Is this what have you? But it's a fun little journal prompt to kind of dive into today. And I'm really interested to see your answers. So I will post that in the group after this. But yes, that's going to be the homework for today. And again, go rate and review the podcast on Apple. And that will have your name entered into the draw. Then I will buy you lunch. So moving into Unbreakably Bold. This program is for the woman that is experiencing the aftermath of trauma, that's experiencing the repeated cycles and the pain and the confusion. And, she's in the self-development world. She's doing therapy. She's in the space, but yet it's still repeating. Right? And because of that, it's getting in the way of her self-leadership, her boldness, her confidence, the way that she speaks to herself, the way that she honors herself, the way that she regulates herself. It's just, she's always putting herself last. She's always putting herself last. That was me, right? Like I am creating this program because this is something I wanted so bad when I was in the beginning stages of my self-development. Like I was alone in it. I had no structure. I had no routine. I was just trying a whole bunch of things, not knowing what am I supposed to really be focusing on. Like there was no guidance from an expert. I was just lost on YouTube and lost in TED Talks and lost in podcasts and what have you, wondering why none of it was sticking. And all I wanted was a space for people that understood me, like a community of women that at the time I was still in the party scene, so my friends didn't really get it if I wanted to stay in on a Friday night or what have you, and so I felt really alone. I would see these friendships. I would see online, there's the comparison thing that we do, and one of the big ones is relationships, not just romantic relationships, but friendships. I didn't have soul sisters yet. I was always a boy's boy, a girl's boy. Like I didn't know it, but I wanted it. But I was afraid to show up in group programs or invest and do these things. So I get you if that's a crunch. But I have found the most aligned friendships inside of masterminds, inside of group programs, because people got me. Because you're on the same mission, because you're doing the same things. And then there's someone that's trauma informed and comes from that background, giving you the access points, the pillars, the step-by-step. That is what I craved so much in my journey. And unfortunately, I didn't see much of it in the way that I teach it now, which is how I got into this. Because I'm very left brain. I didn't want just go do some breath work. And granted, I love all that stuff, but go do yoga, go do tapping, go do these things. I tried all that. But when we've been through trauma, there's also a thing that makes me feel safe is understanding what my body is doing from a science perspective. It's just the knowledge, the awareness. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I see that a lot with the women in my communities. That's what they want too. Because there's a huge feminine, energetic kind of movement, and I'm here for it. And there's this other side of the structure and the strategy and the tools and the systems in place so that you can have some organization and you can have some day-to-day doings of how to get there. even if you're a busy mom of 5, there are 5 minutes that you can carve out in a day to get yourself into a state of regulation, to let your body actually release trauma and move through this stuff and become that version of you, become that vision board person, right? Like, we get one life, one. When we learn to claim that we're creating it, everything changes. When we step into our unbreakable boldness, we take the risks, we honor our intuition, we understand even what our intuition is anymore, because we maybe don't even have that conversation with her because of trauma. Like, with my eating disorders and my trauma and the relationship pattern, like, that was the thing after I left that domestically violent relationship. I was like, I don't even have an intuition anymore. How do I get that back? And in Unbreak, that's what this is. This is the program of giving you the strategies, the structures, and the sisterhood. Because I have no doubt you could do things alone. No doubt. But there's time. There's collapsing time. It's the one thing we don't get back. And when we go into arenas with people that have done it, studied it, bought the t-shirt, came back, walked through it, like, that is where the magic happens. Like I said, I created this program for me. And it's changed my life. And over the years of working with women around the globe, one-on-one, like, this is the thing. It's the relationship to self. It's releasing the trauma. And we're so lost chasing diets and men and money, thinking that'll somehow fill this void. I went after all of those and I never got it. Until I landed in this space and realized all of that is just an extension. And true freedom, true boldness, true confidence, and that magnetism for when you walk into a room or you show up on camera or you talk to your partner comes from you. The regulation you have with you, the freedom you have with you, the releasing of your nervous system and the old paradigms that you have with you. So over those 8 weeks, I'm giving you a peek inside of everything. The structure, the strategy, the organization, the daily practices, the how-to become your confident, healed, bold as fuck self. Who calls in the abundance, who calls in the health, who calls in the relationships that she desires, the friendships or partnerships or family, whatever relationship you're seeking to heal right now. All the tools and the practices that I really wish I would have had. And like I said, right now, instead of the normal $2,000, I don't know, I did the math yesterday, it's $1,500. It is by application only, because I want to make sure this group is the best it can be. So you're supported by me and the women in there. So you can meet your sisterhood. So you can meet your friendships, and be seen and belong and feel like you're worthy again. Like, we learn it in friendships. We don't get that from relationships. That is just an extension. We learn how to do this with our friendships. So if this is something you're like, that's what I desire. Like, I desire this so much. Apply. Do something for you. Sometimes we get in our own way and we're like, it feels crunchy. That's a duality, isn't it? And from there, we can have a conversation, we can jump on a strategy call. I'll also put the link for that as well, because maybe applications ain't your jam and you just kind of want to have a chat. And we'll have a 30-minute little coffee chat and see if it's a good fit for you. Or if one-on-one's a good fit for you. That's also an option, because I have 3 spaces available for that right now as well, for the 6-month journey. But I love you. This price will be $1,500 until tomorrow. And then it'll go up once I put it into the public space. And if you are in Sacred Singlehood, you get to use the credit from that with this as well. So I know some of you are in here, so you can use that as well. But I will see you tomorrow to talk about perfectionism, to close out day 3 with an absolute freaking banger. But I love you. You're beautiful. And I'll see you somewhere on the internet. Happy healings.